You still hear the noise? Is it clear now?
Yes, your voice is clear, Fasiba. You can continue.
Okay, perfect. So what I was telling is, how many people know Java? That's the question I had. So the reason why I'm asking that question is, there are two aspects in Java. A lot of people know already. People who know the Java, who went through some Java sessions, classes, are working already. So the first part of the Java is the core Java, where people learn the basics of Java. And people who are working in many of the different non-Java professions, they are using the core Java. And there is another concept called advanced Java. The advanced Java concept changes from time to time. So long ago, people used to say the JSP means advanced Java. Then came servlets, that was advanced Java. Maybe servlets and JSP together came with a short gap. Then the struts was advanced Java. And these days, the Spring and Spring Boot is the advanced Java. So today what we are talking about is aspects of advanced Java in terms of Spring, Spring Boot, and microservices. And few weeks ago, before Ramadan time, we had a session on the microservices in general, nothing to do with Java. And today we are not going to talk a lot about microservices, but we talk about creating a simple microservice in Java. And why I'm giving this introduction is, a lot of people think advanced Java means this, that, so many things. Yes, there are a lot of things. Not everything you need to know. If you are new to Java and looking for a job in Java, these days the microservice or Spring Boot is the minimum requirement. And people who don't know microservice or Spring Boot, they don't have to claim themselves as a Java developer in these days, that is 2022 or 23 or 24. And other two keywords people might have already heard about is, one is Java, the other is, the second one is J2EE. So when you say Java, it is core Java. When you say J2E, it is kind of a higher version, different flavor of Java, where we say Java 2 Enterprise Edition. So it is, in the beginning, it was Java, then it came Java 2, then it came J2EE. So Enterprise Edition means it is business to business communication. One company is trying to communicate with another company to fulfill their business needs. And this communication is automated. It's not like sending an email and waiting for the reply. The simple example people use every day is the online shopping. It may be flipkart.com or amazon.com or any website where you are buying something. So you are making an inquiry, do you have this product? And the company who is trying to sell the product may not be having a website, but they are selling their products on these websites like Flipkart or Amazon or anything else. So that company says, I have these products I'm selling, and these companies, the online websites, they are going to do the marketing for you. And people who are buying, they pay money to these companies like Flipkart or Amazon. They will take their percentage, and actual person is going to deliver the services. If you want to take another example, for example, this Uber.com. or DoorDash, or in India you have Zomato, or those websites. So those websites or app, they are going to work as a front end, and they are going to interact with the customers. And behind the scenes, there are hundreds and thousands of business owners. They don't have a face to show, but they are the one who is serving your purpose. You pay for your services through these websites or apps, and they are the one who is serving the needs. So those back-end business owners, they might have their own applications, but they are not going to interact with the customer. So here we are talking about the communication between business to business. So when it comes to business, that is where a lot of money is. That is where a lot of business is. And that is why the Java is so popular, because Java is making sure there is a communication between businesses, no matter what kind of technology they are using. Java is able to interact with all those all those businesses, and fulfill their needs. So that's a small short introduction. And coming back to these microservices, there is a non-profit organization, Spring. So the Spring organization, Spring Foundation, they are the one who is developing so many different types of softwares to fulfill the needs of the businesses. And one of them is Spring Boot, which is so popular these days. And that's what we are going to discuss today. To start with, they have created a simple website. I'll go to that website and show you. That's the easy way to start. There are so many things we can do, but I'll give, there is a website here. I just noted down this morning. Yeah, this is the website, Spring.io. So if you are trying to start a simple, since yesterday I was just looking for this website. It is so simple website. If you see my screen, you come here and you are going to say which language you want to use, Kotlin or Groovy or Java. Then you are going to decide whether it is Groovy or Kotlin or Maven. And then you are going to decide what kind of a Spring Boot version you want to use. So here I'm using Java as a language, Maven as a project, and 3.06, which is the stable recent version of Spring Boot. And now I can give a group name. You have any suggestions for me? You can type on the chat. I'll give a minute. What kind of project you are planning to develop today? I'm waiting.
Console demo.
Just type on the chat. Some meaningful business. Career plan, e-commerce, anything else? Okay, let's do career plan then. So here I'm saying, so when you are working in any company in real time, what happens is, if it's a commercial organization, they use COM, the first thing. If it's a government organization, they'll use GOV. If it's a non-profit organization, they will use ORG. So for example, I am trying to develop a project for CGC, and it is ORG. It's a non-profit organization, and the company name is CGC. And the project we are trying to do is career planning, right? And artifact name is career plan. And it's a career plan project using Springboard, right? So I don't have to use this. Okay. So that's the thing. It says generate. So remember this website, start.spring.io, and you're going to specify what kind of group, artifact, and other information. And you choose whether it is Gradle or Maven or what kind of project it is. And if you are all Java developers, you always choose the language as Java. And Spring Boot version, you can choose whatever is the latest, because most of the companies try to use the latest because in latest softwares, there won't be a lot of vulnerabilities or issues. So generate. So it generated a zip file, and the zip file is in my downloads folder here. If I open this, there is a project. I'll just copy this project and I'll put it in my workspace. I have my workspace here, right? So now I got this career plan project inside my workspace. I'll go to my Eclipse here. In Eclipse, close everything. Say right click, import, and here you have Maven project. So we created a Maven project, existing Maven project. The Maven project is created by Spring. Say browse, go to that career plan, select the folder, finish. So now I imported a simple plain project created by Spring website. And if you see, it created a form.xml. And in this form.xml, I have a Spring parent. This is my project name. And this is the version. So as you move or into the project, you will be keep updating the version number from 0.001 to 1.00, 2.0, whatever the number it is. And here it says it is using Java version 17. I can use 19. I have 19 in my system. And if you go down, it is using Spring Boot Starter. And there is a Spring Boot Starter test. So I'm not writing any test cases for now. So I'm just removing that. I don't really need that. And there is a Maven plugin to build the application. And if you see here, I don't really need this test. I'll just delete that. And to fix that issue, I will go to properties, build path, and okay, it's all good. And the next thing I'll see is this. So here is the Spring application. This is the application created by that Spring website. Okay. And I'm simply running. I did no changes. I just generated the project, say Java application. And if you see what's happening here is it created the application, and that application is running right now. All right. Second thing I want to do is I want to add a web dependency to this project. So I have another project. I'll just copy the web dependency from here. I created this morning itself. Spring Starter Web. This is my career plan. Instead of Spring Boot Starter, I'm adding the Spring Boot Starter Web project. Then I'll make a build. So whenever you make changes to your form.xml, what we'll do is we'll go to Maven, say update project, force update dependencies. So whatever the dependencies it has, it is going to update. So I'll show you what happened when I run that form. What actually happens is, if you go to the C drive, in C drive there are users. In users you will see my name here, and inside there is a .m2 folder. In this .m2 folder there is a repository, and in this repository it has downloaded whatever the files we were looking for. So it is a non-profit organization, Spring, and here is the Spring framework. And in the Spring framework you have a boot, and in Spring Boot you have a starter web, and 306 is the version we have chosen here. If you see on my screen, this one, Spring 306, and it downloaded this chapter. So that's the whole thing from start to end. And I'll give a pause. Is it audible, and are you following, or you're lost? Just say yes or no. Good or not good? See no responses. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So let's move on now. So far what we did is we went to Spring website, we created a project, and we downloaded that project as a zip file. And that zip file I opened in my Eclipse, and I built that project and added a Spring Starter web dependency because I want to make it a Spring Boot project. That's all I did. Now, if I run this again, career plan application. Now, if you see, this application is running at 8080 port number, and there is no context path. And if you want a context path to your application, and if you are planning to run this application and some other port number, you can change that. So how you are going to change that is, if you go to the source main resources, there is application.properties. In application.properties, you are going to say server.port equals 9080, for example. Right? Stop this. And if I say career plan application, this time the application ran and it is listening at 9080 port number. So how to change the port number? That is the simple demo I was trying to show you, right? And one other thing I want to emphasize here is this is a Tomcat application. So here, if you see Tomcat, so Spring Boot comes with its own Tomcat server. Earlier in olden days, we used to develop an application and deploy on some server, and which we have to install separately. That's why these days the Spring Boot is so popular. It comes with its own Tomcat, and you can test your application in Tomcat. And once you deploy that application into production or any environment, you don't have to make a lot of changes because the application is already tested and the configurations are all set. Well, otherwise, what used to happen is the application was working fine on my laptop, but when we are deploying onto the server, it was not working. The beauty of Spring Boot is it comes with its own embedded server, and it starts that server, and you can configure that server, And the configuration is also part of your application itself. So when you ship this whole application, this properties file also gets shipped with application. That's the beauty of it. Now we have created a small application here. And second thing, if you remember last time, I was talking about the microservices in my first session. So microservices means it can be a REST service or it can be a SOAP service. And these days, all the new companies, modern companies, modern projects, latest projects, they are all using REST web services. No one is using SOAP web service. Either you are using SOAP web service or REST web service. The understanding is there is a client and there is a provider. Between client and provider, there is a contract. The contract consists of, if it is a REST web service, the contract consists of HTTP method. HTTP method can be get, it can be post, it can be delete, or it can be put, it can be patch. Right? So if you are trying to read some information from using the web service, the recommended approach is to use get method. So get means you're trying to get some information. For example, someone came to flipkart.com, amazon.com, and they are trying to say, can you give me a product? For example, I'm trying to buy a mouse. I'm trying to buy a keyboard. I'm trying to buy a headphone. So the keyword search is headphone. And it has to go to the database and search for all the products where the keyword is headphone. So that is the simple example of get method. And once you get the list of headphones, you will click on one of the product. When you click on one of the product, that product has an ID, and it again uses a get method to pull the information about that particular product. So always, whenever you say get, either you are searching for something or you have already searched and you have an ID of the product, or a person or an employee or some student or something, and you are trying to get the information about that particular person. So that's where you have get. And we use post when you are trying to create a new record. Generally, that is the standard practice in all the software companies across all the applications, all the application technology, all the what you call all the languages. So post is the method when you are trying to create a new record. So for example, I purchased a headphone or a keyboard or something. It creates a new record. It's an order record. So order will be saved in their systems. So if I am, for example, that career planner we are talking about, a new candidate came to CGC and they are registering themselves. This is my name, this is my phone number, this is my qualification, and I need some help. So a person at the front desk in CGC is trying to register them into CGC system. So you are trying to create a new record of a person, that is post. And someone says, from now onwards, I'm not really interested in CGC. Can you please delete my record? And when they say delete my record, we'll call endpoint, and the HTTP method of that endpoint is delete. And put and patch generally people use for updating the information. For example, a student already registered at CGC and the student says, oh, recently I have lost my phone and I got a new phone number. Can you please update my phone number? Everything else stays same, only the phone number is changing. Otherwise, the home address is changing, or email address is changing, or they have a better qualification. Previously, that person was a BTech, now it is MTech. So any updates, we'll use put or patch. And for anything reading, we are going to use get. And creating a new records, you are going to use post. And you are trying to delete the existing record, you are going to use delete. These are the HTTP methods. So contract consists of HTTP method. That is the first thing for REST web services, irrespective of technology. And the second thing is the path. So the path looks like something like this. For example, create new student. Otherwise, get student. So anything, you can write meaningful names to the path. So HTTP method, path. And the third thing is payload. So payload means when you are trying to get something, you are going to give a keyword, right? So for example, you're trying to search for the headphones. So headphone is the parameter you are passing to search for the products, or you are giving the ID, product ID or student ID to get the information. So it is a parameter. And the payload, so there are two things here, parameter and the payload. Either parameter or payload. So parameter is commonly used for get methods, and payload is used for the post or patch methods. And the payload consists of multiple fields, and parameter generally consists of only one parameter or 2-3 parameters, not a lot parameters, too many parameters. And the third thing is you have any security. And the fourth thing is you have any headers. So this is part of your contract. When you are trying to develop a REST web service, these are the things you have to talk about before start writing any web service. What is the HTTP method? What is the path? And if it is a get, what are the parameter names? How many parameters you have? What are the parameter types? If it is a post, then what is the payload structure looks like? How many fields it has? What type of fields they are? And security, you are going to decide based on your security policy in your company. And if there are any headers, not always you have headers, but sometimes you have headers or cookies. So for any REST web service project, this is the contract. The contract is between the person who is trying to receive the services and the person who is trying to provide the services. And when I say person, most of the times it is a company. So we are talking about the business to business communication, and the business A and business B is trying to decide how they are going to interact with each other using these standard methods. So now this is just the introduction to REST web service. So if I am trying to create a new web service in my project, career plan project, I'll say new class, and I'm going to create a controller. You can say student controller, just an example. And I'm going to put that in a package, controller package. And this student controller, I'm considering it as a REST controller. So this annotation is so simple. You just write a small keyword, it's a REST controller. Behind the scenes, it is going to do a lot of hard work for us. That's the beauty of Spring Boot and Spring Framework, and that's why it is so popular. Otherwise, we have to do a lot of hard work to achieve this kind of system, what I'm trying to develop here. Okay. And I'm trying to write an endpoint, public string, I'll say simple endpoint, get student. And is the font visible? If you want me to increase the font size?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is it good?
Yes, yes, it's going good.
Okay, right. Because if it is not visible, I can increase the font size. Okay. And here, I'm saying this is a get method. So we'll say get mapping, and you are going to specify what is your URL. So student is my URL. And here I'm going to give integer student ID. And once I get the student ID, I'm going to fetch the values. For example, I'll just write a dummy code here. If student ID equals, this is the number, I'm going to return. So instead of this, I'll say right. So I am the student here. And if that is not the student ID, I'll say student with ID, student ID, not found. That's the simple program I'm writing here. Right? So I'm done. That is my endpoint. Let's test this, how it works. So my application started and port number is 9080. So to test this program, I need some tool, and the tool is the Postman. You might want to use many other tools. I don't know how many tools available, but majority of the companies are using Postman. So I'm using the Postman here. http://localhost/student ? ID equals 12345. Let's see if it works. Internal server error. What is the error? So I did not give anything here. Okay, I have to give parameter. See, that's the mistakes we do, and we learn from the mistakes. @request param. So it's a request parameter, and the parameter name is ID. So let me stop the server and start again. All right, let's try now. 1 2 3 4 5. So here it says student with ID 1 2 3 4 5 not found. So what actually happened is it went here and it tried to find out that student, and only 2 3 4 5 is available. Other students are not available in my system. So it is behaving as if it went to the database and it brought the information. So when I say 2 3 4 5, it is giving me the student name. So that's the simple demo program I have written. And anyone can write this program. It's not a big deal. You can go to YouTube, you can go to your internet, and you can do this much. I'm trying to show a little more what you don't find on internet. Always in my sessions, I try to give the information which is not easy to find on internet. You might find it, but it is not so easy to find. So what I'm trying to show here is I'll stop this application and show the demo again. I'll do the debugging here. I'm doing the debug. Right? And in debugging, I'll go to a servlet called dispatcher servlet. So behind the scenes, this dispatcher servlet is the one which is making all the magic. Right? So in this dispatcher servlet, there is a method here. Sort by A to Z. Do service. So every servlet has a method called either do post or do get or do service, and so to fulfill the request, it is going to come here. So let's see if it comes here. All right, I stopped at debug point. I added it, and I'll go to this thing. I'll say send. Now it is waiting. Why it is waiting? Because there is a debug point here. So I came here And if you see the request here, so this request is Apache Catalina request, right? So HTTP servlet request is an interface. If I go back, this is an interface, and that interface is implemented by Catalina, which is Tomcat. And if you see here, you have received a Apache Catalina request facade. This facade is a class which is implementing HTTP servlet request. And all the methods from this request you can execute. And if I come now down a little bit, it came here, application context, flash map manager, and here the request path, it is looking for, it is able to pass the request path, which means the request path what I have given here as a student, it is valid. If the student as a path is not valid, it goes there, and here instead of true, instead of getting this true, we are going to get the false. Okay. Then it will go next, next, next. And if you see, it goes to do dispatch method. So this dispatch method is again a helper method of a service method. And here it goes. And I'll add another endpoint, breakpoint here. It comes here. Now we got a request here. So in this request, it is looking for async manager, check multi-part processed. And if you see here, this is false. So it's not a multi-part. And it is looking for a handler here. And if you see, what is the handler here? This is my class, student controller. And it has to go to get student method, which takes an integer. So this is the internal process. When I make a request from a postman, what is happening internally? Why I am showing all these things? Number one, it's not so easy for you to get this information on internet or YouTube or anywhere. And the second thing is, in interviews, in job interviews, someone might ask you the fundamentals of the Spring Boot. And if you explain the fundamentals of Spring Boot, how it works, where it goes, how it gets executed, how this request is being served, you will be hired, because a lot of people don't know how everything works end to end. Anyone can write the program and the program works, but they don't know what is happening internally. So I'm trying to show what actually happening internally when you are writing the program, because writing the program anyone can write. You can go to YouTube, or you can take some coaching or some kind of a website, follow the website, you're done. But these internal things are really important. What is actually happening behind the scenes, what the Spring framework is doing behind the scenes. You are not really writing a servlet, but it is doing all the processing of the servlet. It is receiving the request, sending the response, it is interpreting your headers. All these things are happening behind the scenes. I'm trying to show that aspect. Okay, so let it go now. Done. The request is served, and we got the response here. And as I was saying, if I don't give correct mapping, if I say students send the request, so let it go. All right, we got some response error here. It says 404 not found. So it went to the dispatcher servlet, and the dispatcher servlet went from service to it went to dispatch. And when it was trying to dispatch, there is no endpoint called student. That's why it says your request is bad. 404 not found. That request is not there. That particular endpoint is not there. That's what it is complaining about. All right. So I'm going to stop here. We already took more than half an hour, and I'll give you a minute for any questions you have. Either you can unmute or chat, then we'll talk more. And this thing we have already covered in our last session. What is the REST and what is SOAP? So in case of SOAP, the whole communication happens using the SOAP protocol. And in terms of REST, the whole communication happens over the HTTP protocol. HTTP is the standard simple protocol. It has no complications. That's why REST is so popular these days. But older services, older companies, some companies running for years and years, decades, they are using SOAP web services. They might have written the SOAP services. They are still using the SOAP services. But on all the projects where I was working recently, companies are trying to convert their SOAP web services into REST web services. You have any more questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then I'll show you a different project. I'm not writing from the scratch. I did just now. I'm going to show you the project which I already written some time ago, because it takes time to write everything, right? So I have written a small project here, a bank project. So think about, there is a bank, and that bank has customers, and the customer comes to the bank and they will give their customer ID or something, and they will say, I have to do something. So for example, I am trying to send an email to my customer and I want to get the details of the customer. So what I will do is I will send the customer ID and I'm going to get the customer information. And I have created a small database. Oh, where is my database? I just set up this computer yesterday. There's nothing in this. My computer died. So this is my database. Everything is new. So this is the small database I created for my bank project. And this is my schema name. And I have an account table, customer table, and transaction table. And in my customer table, I have ID of the customer, which is primary key and auto-generated. First name, last name, date of birth, address, phone number, social security number, email, create date, and update date. These are the columns I have in my customer table. And customers might have more than one account. So here I have account ID, customer ID, and type of account, whether it is savings account, current account, something like that. Then account number, which is again generated by the system. Balance in my account, and what is the open date. If it is already closed, there may be a close date. And when that account was last updated, there is update date. And when the customer is doing some transactions, I have a transaction table where I'm going to specify in which account the transaction is happening, what is the transaction ID auto-generated, what is the description of the transaction, whether someone is buying something from Amazon or Reliance or some company or some office, some shop. Then type of transaction, whether it is a debit or credit. Then what is the amount of transaction, number of dollars or rupees. Then you have a create date. So these are the simple tables I created for my project. And if people are interested, you can send me a message. I'm going to share all those details. Actually, we had a SQL session recently, and I used this bank project. So here, if I have a get mapping and somebody is trying to get the information about the customer, and they are going to give me, let me maximize this. They are going to give me an ID, and this customer ID, I am going to take it. And after taking that customer ID, I'll go to my bank service. I have created a service class here, and this interface. I'll go to the implementation. Right. I'll go to database, and from database, I'm going to read that customer information. Select star from customer where ID is equal to whatever the customer ID you are giving. That's my simple application here. And just for some kind of a fake security, I added a request header. So the request header, if someone is giving me the request header, I'm going to check that secret header. Only my customer knows. And this is, if it is not provided, I'll say there is an error. If it is provided, what I will do is I'm going to check if this request header is valid or not valid. If it is not valid, I'm going to return error. I'm not doing proper error handling. It is a simple project for the demo. So I'm just putting everything into my customer object and sending back. All right. So let's run this program and see what happens. This program is not, I'm not writing from scratch. There are two bank applications. Let me run this. So this bank application I am running at 8070 port number. And let me try from Postman. What was the port number? 8070. So 8070 customer ID equals 1. So it goes to database and it is getting the first name, last name, date of birth, address, phone number, everything from the database for this particular customer ID. If I give wrong customer ID, for example, 56, I don't have so many customers. It did not give anything, but I have to do proper error handling to say, oh, customer not found or something like that. And one other thing I was trying to show is the header. So here I have some secret key. If this key is wrong, if I did not provide this key itself, I'll just remove this. I'm not going to send the customer this header. So I'm going to get this bad request, right? Because I'm expecting this header. If you don't give header, it gives the error. And if you give wrong header, someone knows there is a header, but they don't know actual value of the header, they will get an error here. Okay, maybe that validation is missing here. Okay. All right. Any other questions you have?
Hello, hi.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah. I have two questions. The first thing is for this microservices, building a career in microservices, which is the best podcast you recommend in YouTube? So that I can visually I can check how actually the microservices are working. That is my first question. Based on recommend, I will check that all the videos. And second thing is see, you have created one microservices, which is, for example, you have created one first project you created, right? I don't remember the project name. Sorry.
The career plan.
Career plan. Okay, let's assume career plan. There is a guidance plan like that. 2 to 3 microservices we have created independently. Okay, let's assume I have created, you have created. Okay, this particular 3 microservice, how interact with each other, how it understand each other, that particular process, what exactly the process, how it communicate. For that, do we need Docker, Kubernetes? What is the roles of Docker and Kubernetes? That particular thing I have a little doubt.
Right.
Can you please brief on that? Individually, independently creating the via Spring Boot project, yeah, that we can up to the mark we can do. But how actually microservices means it should have, right, multiple microservice project has to be interact like that.
Yes. Your question is really a valid question. Yes. in real-time systems. That's what happens. And in my first session, I was explaining microservices can be developed in Java or .NET or Python or Node.js. There are so many technologies. And no matter in which technologies you develop the microservice, these microservices should be able to interact with each other. And when the microservices is trying to interact with each other, this is the basic thing which is driving them. The person who is trying to invoke the microservice, they need to know whether it is HTTP method get or post or delete or whatever it is. Then they have to know the actual path, and they have to know what are the parameters it is going to accept, what are the types of parameters, and what actual values you are going to pass. Then if it is a post web service, then you have to know the payload. And if there is any security, you have to follow those security protocols. And then you are going to pass any headers and cookies it is expecting. So that's the basic contract between two different companies, and one company is invoking the other company microservice. Otherwise, within the company also, a microservice is invoking another microservice. So if I go to website, I'll show you, because that whole project is not available, but there is something called REST template. And a simple example here. So this is how you are going to interact with other microservices from one microservice. So this REST template is the class. I'll show you the class here. So this is the class. It is in the Spring Framework web client. So you are trying to create a client that, so you are the client and someone else is developing the web service for you, and their web service you have to invoke and send the request, get the response. And to do all these things, you are going to use a REST template. That is one option. The other option is Webflux. This is the new one. So this Webflux is the new way of invoking someone else's web service. That web service need not be created by Spring or any Java technologies. It might be created by .NET, or it might be created using some other technology. If you are trying to invoke that web service, you are going to use either REST template or Webflux. And there is a third option. The third option is OAuth template. OAuth REST template. And this OAuth 2 REST template, maybe someone has written some example here. So you are going to use Spring Security OAuth 2. And so they are going to use this OAuth 2 REST template. So these are the three different ways you are going to interact from your Spring Boot application and make a request to some other web service. That web service might be created in Spring or Java or any Python or some other application. And you are the client and you are invoking that web service, and you are going to interact with other microservices. And that microservices need not be some other company. It may be within your company itself. Is that clear?
Yeah, I got clear. Personally, my doubt is very clear. Thanks for that one. My doubt is my assumption is microservices means we need to have Dockers and Kubernetes. Without that one, the microservice will not work. That is my assumption. Is this correct or wrong?
In big companies, that's the popular technology people are using, but it need not be. So 99% of the times, that's what companies are using. But for example, I'll give one example. Some company it's a very small company and they don't have a lot of big infrastructure, but they want some kind of a privacy for their customers. So they have their own server in their own server room. So they are maintaining their own server room. There is no Kubernetes, there is no Docker, nothing. And if you are trying to interact their web service, they are going to give you the website name. So I'll write some type something here for you. So for example, https colon and the small company.com slash account question mark ID equals, right? So this small company.com, it need not be hosted on Azure, it need not be hosted on Amazon Web Services, AWS, or some other cloud, and it need not be running on a Kubernetes or Docker container, and it can still serve the purpose as a microservice, and that microservice is deployed on their own services, their own servers, and what they call it as is on-prem. Means on premises. So in their own company, in their own server room, they are hosting the server and they are not really using Kubernetes or Docker or anything. Kubernetes, Dockers, and all those things people are using these days because they are using cloud, and cloud services are so costly. You are not going to use 100 GB RAM or 5 terabytes of a hard drive on cloud. But if you have your own machine, you might have bought a system where the RAM is 64 GB RAM. In all these cloud services, Azure or Google Cloud or all those places, people are using a smallest server possible, like 0.1 core CPU and 200 MB RAM, because everything is costly, and it is their choice. But you are right. Most of the companies are using Kubernetes or Docker, and that is where they are hosting their services. But it is not 100% right to say it's always required to use the Kubernetes or Docker. Without that, we cannot have a microservice. That's wrong.
Okay. So got it. Clear.
Yeah.
The podcast, the YouTube video, which channel which particular thing you recommend for to build a career in microservices?
No, you can go to any podcast, any YouTube channel, and just do your research. And when you have questions, come back and ask us. CGC, and there are other WhatsApp groups we have. And in all those WhatsApp groups, we are open to discuss any questions you have, any problems you have. Whenever you are stuck, come back and ask questions.
Okay.
That's how we learn from each other. No one is perfect, no one is master. On day one, no one is going to solve all the problems. We always face some problems and we solve the problems after doing some research.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Jazakallah. Thanks a lot.
Right. Any other questions?
Yeah,
you can unmute or like.
Yeah. So from this side, actually, I'm just new to this Java things. So my question is that if I wanna make my career to this Java, so where should I start? Because whatever you explained today, I think I barely understand that thing. So that is actually one of
Right.
yeah.
If you are new to Java, you did not get anything today. That's what I told in the beginning itself. There are two types of Java. One is core Java, that is advanced Java. These things comes under advanced Java. The core Java means just the programming itself. For example, what are the different data types Java has? What are the different loops Java has? What are the if-else constructs Java has? Switch constructs Java has? And what are the Java APIs like a string API, string builder API, string buffer API? And there are collection frameworks, the array list sets, all those things. That is
Yeah.
all under the core Java.
Yeah.
And when it comes to advanced Java, there are frameworks. The Spring framework is one of the framework created by some third-party non-profit organization, and it is really popular these days, and almost all the companies are using it for their day-to-day application development. So people who are trying to build their career, they should do at least the Spring Boot and the core Java. Then they can claim themselves as a Java professionals. And there are so many other things they can learn in each stages, in phases. They don't have to learn everything on day one.
So do I have to learn SQL also, because some of my friends told me that you have to cover SQL also, Hibernate also.
Right.
So I did
So
not
I was
understand that
showing
thing,
this
but just help me
database
understand.
tables which I created. That is the simple SQL I was using. It's not so complicated. And in all the companies wherever you are working, these tables will be created by some database professionals. But if you know how to create a table, that is better. And the second thing is you should be able to know how to write the simple queries on my screen. If you see select star from bank.customer, so bank is the schema name, customer is the table name. I'm trying to get all the columns and all the customer information from the database table. So some simple queries you should be able to write to start with. And over the period of time, you might do some kind of advanced concepts using joins, inner joins, outer joins, case statements, and all those things. But you don't have to be expert in SQL, but some basic SQL is required. And you have to understand what are the database transactions means, what is the rollback means, what happens if one of the table is not behaving properly. Some basic information you have to understand. You don't have to be a database expert if you are claiming yourself as a Java developer.
So suppose if I'm going for an interview and I want to sound like an experience, if I cover core Java advanced in this SQL, so is that enough for me?
So to start with, you have to understand what is core Java means, what is basic SQL means, and you have to understand how to develop an application using Spring Boot and some database connectivity and all those things. That's the starting point for you. And as you go forward, once you are done with basic SQL, basic Java, and Spring Boot and these things, then you can go to some jobs website, for example, naukri.com or monster.com or some website. On this website, you will be able to see, look for a Java developer opening. When you see Java developer opening, they will say a person needs to know A, B, C, D technologies. And you already know A, B, but you don't know C, D. So you have to learn those C, D technologies. For example, just now I was talking about the Maven, right?
Yeah.
So Maven is one of the technology, and you don't have to be expert in Maven, but you have to understand some basics of the Maven to start with. And similarly, there is a Git. There are other things. When you see the job description, you will be able to find out, and all these things you will be able to learn in 1 hour or 1 week or 1 day, based on how big the technology, how deep you are planning to go, how detailed you are trying to do the research. But you don't have to pay money and get the coaching from some professional coaching person or something. You can learn all these technologies by yourself. And to apply for a Java opening, you just have to fulfill what is the job requirements are. That's all you need.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
Where do you suggest us to learn from actually? Like you don't suggest us to hire an individual for training, right? So what would the best platform to learn?
No, if you manage to have money and expert trainer, you can definitely go for the training. I'm not saying you are not supposed to go for that, but if you don't afford, you don't have money, then trainer is not really important, number one. And number two, where to go is wherever you are living. For example, you are living in Hyderabad, so there are some coaching centers in Hyderabad. You are living somewhere in a remote place, but you don't have any coaching centers. These days there are a lot of people who are giving online training also. So option one, you can just go to websites and search. Just now I was showing on my screen here what is the REST template and how to use the REST template, and what is WebFlex, and how to use this WebFlex means, what is OAuth2 template. So like this, you can do online search, Google search, and you can find out, number one. Number two, you can go to YouTube and there are a lot of videos and you can try to learn from those videos. Number three, you can buy a course on Udemy or some website and you can do that. Number four, there are some individuals in India or across the world, they are giving online coaching. You can do that. Number fifth is you can go for in-person coaching, face-to-face coaching, and someone is going to sit with you and explain with you. So as you go up, the price goes up. So if it is a Google, it is easy. YouTube, it is free. Then Udemy means you will pay some money. Then like that, that's how it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I can find out Udemy courses and tell you. And here is my email address. I'm giving my email address. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me an email. And I'm not sharing my phone number because people are going to call in odd hours in middle of the night. So you can send me an email and I'm going to share whatever the information you need. And whenever you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I'll try my best to answer. Otherwise, I'll find out from other people. I'm not the only expert in the whole world. There are a lot of experts and I can reach out to them and find out answers to your questions. Any other questions? Sure, you can stop the recording.
Okay, I have made you host, Fasibai. You can stop and you can just end the meeting. End the meeting for all.
All right. Okay, I'm first stopping the recording now.